Welcome to the Unity Project podcast, where we like to talk about things that affect the community, affect us, and try and work towards building a better future for ourselves, our children, and the community. So I think we'll start now, seeing if everybody's ready. If everybody's ready, we can start. I'll let you introduce yourselves first, and you can give us a brief introduction into yourselves. So we've got three guests on today. I'll start with you, Jamie. You can introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening, Gavin. Good evening, everybody else. My name is Jamie Kane. The short version is professionally, I'm a senior lecturer at Sheffield University. I also work as head of a enterprise management in a standard body. I do various community development initiatives. More recently, I was involved in a scouting project where I was a group scout leader, and I'm happily married, 4 kids, and enjoy traveling. That's a short version. Thank you.
And Johan, if you can introduce yourself, please, also.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Johan Gilroy. I work in careers and employability. That's my background. I've been working in careers and employability since 1996. I currently work in the careers and employability service at Sheffield University, but I have a long-standing interest in the leadership potential of people from African, Asian and other minoritized groups.
I think I'll go next. Good evening, everybody. My name's Maxine Greaves. Over 20 odd years experience working in quality and community engagement. That is my passion, that is my purpose. Formerly was supporting academic development at Sheffield University. Now I'm freelance working as an educational consultant and working with Johan and Jamie, which we'll talk about later. Tell about the happily married thing. No. Happily attached.
Thank you all for your introductions. Well, on this podcast today, we're going to be talking about the principles of success, which you three are all, which is your baby, I suppose. Yeah. So, and what that does. So we can start, if you can give us a little background, either one of you three can, into what principle of success is.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. So a bit of background to principles of success. I suppose this sort of first had its initiation when, whilst working in my role at Sheffield Hallam, there was some initiative where the department wanted to take some progressive action towards increasing the employability uptake from students who are coming from African, Asian, and other minoritized group backgrounds. I got involved in that initiative towards the latter part of it, where there was 2 English academics leading it. They called me, and I wasn't aware until they called me into this initiative. Early on, I kind of found out that they needed a bit more input and advice in terms of how to go about this. And as a part of that, I actually brought in a colleague of mine, Jonathan Williams, to lend some of his expertise in terms of advising what they should be looking at doing from a holistic approach, because it was a little bit narrow-minded in terms of the way they were approaching it. Anyway, long story short, that initiative never really took off. But the next academic year, I was sort of left pondering to myself, thinking, well, that's not going anywhere. What's happening next? And I took it upon myself to sort of think of the idea around principles of success in liaison and discussion with Jonathan in the initial stages, and spoke to Maxine about this. And we essentially, Maxine, myself, and another colleague who's not there now, Dr. Munna, we got this program together whereby we wanted to basically I wanted to impart some of the self-leadership principles that I'd learned in different experiences of my life to students. And at the same time, try and run some solution-focused workshops where we could sort of understand where the issues are and how we can progressively address them in the university. So as a result of that, we sort of used our social networks and we brought some key speakers in. And they were the initial stages of Principles of Success. Maxi, maybe you can explain how the conversation led to you talking to Johan and how the sort of stars aligned moving forward.
Yes, that's a good one. I think myself and Johan were invited to one of the many initiatives that universities have when they're discussing the problematic issue of BAME. And I'll let you know from the offset, we don't subscribe to BAME, but we'll give you a little bit more background to that. We identify our students and ourselves as African, Asian, or from a minoritized group. So myself and Johan were invited to that meeting to discuss what support could be put in place for students from those backgrounds. And there was a lot of what we refer to as deficit thinking and no progressive solution-focused discussions around the capacity for these students to be leaders, to be successful in HE. It was all deficit thinking. And I think myself and Johan, towards the end of my input in response to I'm not gonna name anybody, in response to us playing the race card, kind of caught Johan's eye, because I said, oh, well, we can't, what do you mean by playing the race card? Because if you think about it, we can't play the race card, but that's owned by whiteness. Whiteness can play the race card at any time to a person of African, Asian, or minoritized group, but we can't play that card. And we sort of caught, our eyes kind of caught across the table. And I was thinking to myself, we need to have a talk. And I think Johan was thinking the same thing, about how we can work collectively together. And we met, I think a couple of days after that meeting, we met and had a discussion about how we can work, how we can progress our thinking as a partnership, as a collaboration, in terms of developing a support mechanism for AMG students within the HE sector. And then I said to Johan, you know who you need to speak to next? You need to speak to Jamie Kane, because Jamie is doing something on a similar nature, and I think we need to put our heads together. So we connected in that meeting, and I referred Johan to Jamie for further discussion. And that's how we ended, I think that's how we ended up working together, was that collective mindset about no more deficit discussions about our students who look like us, because they can progress in higher education, and how can we make that happen? So that was the start of the ruckus, I'm going to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Johan, maybe you can share your perspective and maybe a bit of light on that conversation. I still remember our conversation that we had.
So we following Max is absolutely right in terms of how sort of things aligned from the meeting that we both attended, and we had a coffee, and I think we were sharing similar we shared similar aspirations and ambitions for students from our background, both contemptuous of the deficit narrative. And it was from that meeting with Maxine that she suggested that we talk to that sort of link up with Jamie. And we had a Skype call on a Friday, and spent about an hour on that Skype call, literally just kind of, it was very clear from within the first couple of minutes of talking to each other that we're of a very, very similar mindset. The students aren't broken. It's obvious they come from a cultural background which is, has all the attributes required and motivations required to excel within higher education, within the world of work and beyond. And that, there just needed to be a kind of change in approach and in the sort of mindset around the work in this area. So I could see what, even the name Principles of Success, it says, something, often when you're seeing leadership programs, if there are any within higher education, they're always sort of marked by deficit, even in the name, of those programs. But this was about principles of success. And based on, sharing the kind of lived experiences and the principles of success of people from our backgrounds, navigating in a whole range of spheres, whether that's higher education or within their particular professional areas, and the sort of success principles that people applied in order to navigate the barriers, the hurdles that they inevitably encounter, but still succeed. It's just been a real kind of wonderful collaboration and meeting of minds ever since, really. I would say that without doubt, the working with Maxine and with Jamie on the Principles of Success program has been the highlight of my career. Really has.
So how has it evolved from where you started, and how long ago did you start this, and to where you've got to now, and process of what's happened?
Yeah, so we kicked off obviously COVID blinds when you the ability to track back a little bit, but we kicked off, I think it was 2000.
I think he's
2019, 2020.
Oh, we've lost Jamie there.
Yeah, he's frozen in thought.
I think we had initial discussions late 2018, and
yes,
and actually kicked off in early 2019, with, I think it was roughly about 30 students, from the start. It was from Jamie's area in computing, and it was across all different courses, but across what we called the different levels. So first year, second years, and final year students. I think we had a couple of PhD students, master's students as well. So it was a good mix. And those 30 students came on the pilot for, I think it was probably about 6 weeks, Johan, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And from that input, they learned about self-awareness, they learned about their cultural wealth and how to harness that, how to leverage that. We looked at the core principles of success in terms of how your lived experience and how you can put that into play in terms of guiding your career, creating a career narrative, talking to individuals that we saw as not just role models, but exemplars in terms of their journey. And it wasn't we didn't pick individuals who were kind of like, look at me, I'm a success. It was the ones that gave you strategy, that gave you focus. And I'm going to quote one of them. Dave Campbell was our first keynote speaker, and he talks about staying in your lane and just having that focus and how you can shape your trajectory to inform your success. So it wasn't that, I'm a successful business guy, I've got and moneyed, etc. It was those strategies, those key strategies that kept you focused, that enabled you to navigate the system in order to be successful and maintain that, but at your I suppose, and maintain your own authenticity as well with that. So it wasn't about what we refer to as selling out or becoming somebody you're not. It was galvanizing that authentic spirit that you have within yourself to maintain that trajectory to a successful outcome for your whether it's your degree program, your work placement, just those life skills. And that's what we looked at. And Jamie kept a track on all the students and their starting point, so we could just map, where they came in and where they ended up in terms of their assessed tasks, etc. when they went back to their courses. And I think I might have kind of got the percentages maybe a little bit out of line, but I think was it 98 or 95% of them came out with a 2-1 or a first. Johan, I've got that right.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the final year students that
Yeah.
were sort of taking part in the program, yeah, it was in terms of achieving good honours, it was virtually sort of across the board.
And that was just 30 students engaging with that program for 6 weeks. And that gave us the kind of like, I suppose, the momentum to say, okay, we can do this with 30 students. What could we do if we ran it for longer? And let's look at how we can develop that program into a 10-week program, and how we can share that program across the university at all subject areas. I think the university, as it stands, was made up of 4 faculties, and now it's 4 colleges. So at the time there were faculties. So we shared that our intention, I suppose, with heads of department in the first instance, about our intention to, you might want to pick up the juicy bit here, Johan, about our intention to develop the program and share it, give the opportunity to all students who look like us across the university subject areas. I think we even met with the key lead for race equality at the university as well. And I'll leave this sweet nugget for Johan to pick up. So in that conversation,
I was just cutting out, guys. I don't know if you heard me. I'll cut out twice. The internet connection's really playing upon me. I don't know, Maxine, you was discussing some of the key points, which is really interesting about the week breakdown of the program that we developed. What I was going to say before my internet cut out, and you may have covered it, but I don't know because I cut out, is that from those solution-focused workshops that we did in the beginning, it was clear to us that we needed to actually think about a more strategic change platform moving forward, not just focusing on students, but also focusing on the organization development of people, development of the organization itself, and also to always maintain a research-informed approach. And these three things: the student self, which was a leadership program, the organization development, the staff development, and the maintaining a research-informed approach. These things contribute towards culture transformation. And that was clear to us in terms of coming out of that first run of those solution-focused workshops, that we need to expand this. And yeah, we sort of now had that vision in our mind as we were developing that 10-week program. Sorry, folks, continue.
Yeah, you need to. You're crackling up there, brother. Your internet connection's bad. Maybe you should try joining on your phone.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Trust me.
So Johan was going to pick
up. So Maxine was alluding to a particularly interesting interaction which we had with the university's lead around race equality. So when we were outlining the Principles of Success program, its ability to make a kind of unique contribution in this space, the rejection of deficit thinking, a progressive program predicated on the cultural wealth of students from African, Asian and minoritized groups. It was referred to as, or it was alluded to by this colleague, that that would be tantamount to ghettoizing. So that's the response that we had, that we were creating in effect an academic ghetto. So that was an interesting starter for 10, and clearly an indication to us that what we were doing was creating something of a ruckus, creating a sort of different way of thinking to what the university was used to adopting. Obviously, that rejection of the sort of deficit thinking is quite sort of prevalent in what we do. But I suppose it's something that we found that there are some sort of well-intended colleagues who have progressive thinking, but that key people within the institution have a sort of a mindset that isn't progressive in this space.
I don't know if I can be heard clearly now.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, what a time for the internet to start playing up. So yeah, Johan was making a very key point. I mean, I could hear you guys pretty clear. And it's funny because I remember that phase that we went through where we sort of delivered that first batch of solution focused workshops. We realized that, you know, there needs to be a strategic change platform with principles of success, not just focusing on students' self, but also organization development, staff development, and having a strand that's going to be maintaining a research-informed approach. And those things contribute towards transforming the culture. And we were quite excited when we went to sit with one of the senior leaders in the university about, you know, we want to bring you a solution to the problem that the university's got. Here it is. Do you know what I mean? We were excited. And you start to see who's who when you come out with organic, innovative practice. And alongside saying what Johan said, you know, which threw us back, to be honest. Still can't believe he said it to this day. And we actually did quote that in the paper as well, that we'll discuss later. But what was also funny is that when it came to him honoring the word to get us into the meeting with the Vice Chancellor to propose this program as a solution to move forward, you start to see a different tone on the email, you know, batting it onto somebody else, that person saying, well, it has to sit under this remit. And you start to see the sort of institutional blockages coming out now. So we basically, you know, said, okay, thanks, but no thanks. And we still carried on to do our thing, you know, regardless of sort of not having the support from this leader who was in position at the time. And I mean, the way we put it together in terms of structuring the program itself, and the way we promoted it and recruited and dealt with the whole sort of administration behind the program, was still to this day a surprise to many colleagues at the university. Johan, you're involved in promoting many programs at the university-wide, and you know what traction is picked up, applicants and so on. Yeah. We came out with this innovative program, and you know the way we market it, we had innovative ideas and organic ideas, and your colleagues were shocked, weren't they? Do you want to share some of the response in terms of?
I mean, basically, they're intrigued to sort of try and establish how we went up. Basically, the program we went in the sort of second incarnation of POS. We had 50 places, or we designed the program for 50 students, and we attracted 150 applications. So 3 times the number of applications, which there are programs that have existed within the university for many, many years that don't attract that volume of applications, let alone 3 times as many applications. And so, yeah, there was a bit of sort of surprise and intrigue as to how we'd done that. But I mean, if I was reflecting on that, there wasn't any gimmicks. There was no kind of, it's amazing what resonance, being your authentic self and speaking a very clear and coherent narrative that speaks to directly to those students, speaks to their the cultural wealth, tells them that they're not broken, tells them, conceives them from the get-go as leaders in waiting, but that are just requiring a program that enables them to develop their leadership potential, that's delivered crucially by us, for us. And we went into those inductions ourselves, so they could see the people behind the leadership program. Literally there were people who were on the program who we can remember from the induction programs. And as Jamie's alluded, it's a program that wasn't getting resource, wasn't getting any sort of backing, as it were, from the university. This was all on our own backs and all through our own desire and wit and will.
Yeah,
hence why we refer to causing a ruckus.
Yeah, this
and when
was literally,
Johan referred to induction programs, they're the first interaction a student will have in terms of their course. It lays out the foundation for the next 3 or 2 years of their program, and they get lots of information thrown at them. But we saw that as a key moment to actually get in front of the students, and we must give credit where credit's due. There was some progressive thinking in terms of the subject groups who made that happen for us as well. Who welcomed us onto their subject stages to give that information to their students. And I think we must have been on a what do you call it, a round tour.
it was
maybe,
yeah.
I've lost count, 30 odd plus induction programs. It was just bam, 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 in over 2 week in a 2 week period. And we must have seen several hundred students.
Yeah. And we reiterate, this was done out of our own time. We weren't given really any time to do this, you know, nature of this type of work across the whole university, because that's the thing. This program wasn't just situated in one faculty; it spread across the whole university. And in terms of sort of, you know, to put a long story short, in terms of the delivery of that program, yes, it had huge impact. The graduates, the level 6 students who enrolled on the program, who completed the program, they all got good honors degree classifications, meaning they achieved either a 2-1 or a first. You know, there's evidence of them going on to career paths. They've taken on other leadership programs. So there was significant impact that we, I think, talk about in the paper that came out of the program. But what also came out of the program for us was we were able to sort of really analyze the data, the feedback, which informed the sort of next stage of POS in terms of, you know, publishing something around what we've done and theorizing it, which sort of, I'll stop there. I think there's a question from Kevin, has got his hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, thanks guys for, you know, letting us know about the program that you set up. And, you know, I think we understand the need for a program like that, and can see the resistance that you've had in trying to get that established, and obviously the good benefits that it's had for the students that have engaged with it. But like, to the meat and the bones of it, like, what is it in your program that empowers learners, or that got this, you know, that got these great results that resulted in success? So basically, when they engage in your program, what is it about themselves that you know, empower, or however you want to put it?
I think I'll attempt to answer that by also making a connection to what we wrote about in the paper. And that's 4 things. One is those students who came onto the program, they had a very strong sense of belonging. They understood that we appreciated them for who they are, for their own authentic self. We valued the cultural wealth that is innate in them, number 1. The second thing was, it was a space to provide them a space to air their voice, for their culture to be valued. And we, if you like, in addition to that, globalize the curriculum. So sense of belonging, number 1, voice, value, and cultural wealth, number 2. Number 3, you know, it was a globalized curriculum experience, because we were drawing from, you know, aspects of trying to impart principles of success, leadership principles from different sources of learning outside the traditional Eurocentric approach, which is what majority of courses are centered upon in the university. The 4th thing for us was that we gave them innovative and organic methods of developing their employability, their links to industry, developing their career networks, and giving them a sense of connection to community through the projects that we brought on board for them to undertake, and through the sort of career fairs that we ran for them, and through the networking events that we coordinated as well. So, you know, those four things was what we ended up realizing when we reflected, and that's what we then labeled it as a progressive relational pedagogy. So for those who are in the sort of academic world and look at teaching and learning, pedagogy basically means your approach to teaching and learning. And there's lots of things been written about what's called a relational pedagogy, which is essentially looking at this sort of building of effective relationships with your students and embedding that as part of your teaching and learning. But we felt that we actually progressed that theory forward through those four things that I mentioned. And then we then theorized that, because, you know, you produce a theory when you do something, you collect data, you study it, you realize there's something that's come out of it, and that's what we did. So we labeled this what we call now a progressive relational pedagogy, PRP. And for us, that's what made the program effective, and that's for us a sustainable thing, and it actually it informed other things that we've moved on to do beyond the program now as well. I hope that answered the question, Kevin.
You're on mute, Kev.
Said, yeah, good answer that, brother. Thank you very much. Yeah.
But I just wanted to, can I just add to that? But I think we involve the students in shaping the design and the delivery of the program itself. And I will always remember that some of the testimonies that were shared with us. I think coming into that space as well, one of our students commented, is this what it feels like to be the majority? I think that's one that still resonates with me. And the other one was this is a program that's by us, for us. Those two things, that they just fill you with, it's more than hope. But those two things definitely resonate with myself in terms of the generous feedback from those students.
Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Oh, Jonathan's got a question.
Yes. How you doing, guys?
Yes, brother Jonathan.
Can you hear me?
You're
Echoing.
All right. Let me. I'll try get it a sec.
maybe use your headphones. You've got any headphones?
Whoa.
What's next then for yourselves and for the organization and the project?
Yeah, so basically moving on from that program that we delivered, the 10-week leadership program, we obviously knew that we had something powerful. The university was also really, really keen to sort of leverage what we'd done in their own way. And our initial sort of thinking was, you know, let's obviously continue to do this innovative organic work. Let's continue to sort of make an impact, and let's continue towards progressing and changing the culture and the practice, both on the student self-development, but also from an organization perspective. So, you know, moving out of the program, whilst we had identified these four things that for us made up the progressive relational pedagogy, we took those four things and we embedded it into a staff development program to start with, where we had a whole department on development day doing development around developing their practice of delivering their modules of teaching through a progressive relational pedagogy lens. Now, this development was successful, but challenging at the same time, because we were dealing with technical orientated practitioners who wouldn't really see how relational pedagogy would fit into their curriculum delivery. So, but the thing is, when people look at things through a certain lens, you know, sometimes the lens has to be changed. So the development sort of brought about that mindset shift, and that was a successful delivery. It really started to change the thinking amongst some practitioners, and there was some success there. I'm seeing a hand raised here.
Jonathan, you unmute yourself. See if you can.
Yes, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. How you doing, Jerry? Okay, go all right.
Yeah, doing good, thanks.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, just a question that I've got is more around sustainability. Because a lot of the projects, when we lead on them, they're always generally successful. But ultimately, it's not, sometimes it can't not be sustainable. How do you get the institution to take ownership of it, but with the same sort of authentic approach that you guys sort of implemented? Because ultimately, the institution as a whole has to take ownership, as it's just a bit of a, you know, some of these projects can be just a one-time thing. How do you get institutions to take ownership?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because if you really want to make progressive, sustainable change, then, you know, this has to be, I say, within the DNA of the organization. They've got to be really serious. They've got to be authentic and want to make real change. And when you've got an organization who is sincere and wants to do that, they'll recognize where they need to sort of facilitate the maintenance of something that's already been organic and innovative. They don't want to kill that. If anything, they want that nature to grow. And sometimes that means you have to give free reign and ownership for people to scale that further up and develop. And unfortunately, when you don't have that support from an organization, then your ability to have something that's sustainable is literally destroyed. Or when you do maybe sort of make a compromise on what you've done to fit into the organization's agenda, which isn't sincere, then you end up having something that's counterproductive, meaning it's not going to create that progressive change. It's not going to do the right thing. It's going to end up in the wrong hands and create the wrong type of impact. So unfortunately, we experienced the latter, where there wasn't the ability to actually allow this program to grow in the way that it needed to maintain its authenticity and the organic nature to which it was started from. So some would say it's not a surprise, because I'm sure there's many of us from our community who have been through experiences where, you know, somebody now wants to own it. In fact, I don't know if that comment came in earlier, but we had many attempts as we went through the journey to where we got at the moment of what we're discussing now, many attempts from different senior colleagues in the institution where they actually tried to put this program under their umbrella, right? I've literally been in meetings where I've had to say, no, this stands here. This is ours, right? And because we initiated this off our own backs, with our own time, they couldn't really pull us in. That was a beautiful thing. Yeah. So we was like, what's the word? Insurgents. Yeah. We were like insurgents with this thing that we developed. We're not giving it up. In fact, you know, I'll say it as it is, you know, whilst we proposed to scale this thing up in a certain way, okay? And, you know, middle management, department managers were all for it. We had department managers across the university who wanted this program for their students, right? So you've got all these managers saying, yes, bring it, right? When you take it to their managers, all right, you go to their leadership days, you present it, everyone's cheering, you know, giving a hand of applause. Even the person who said, "Isn't that going to create a ghetto?" We went to one of their leadership meetings and all his colleagues are clapping about this program that he was saying, "Wouldn't that create a ghetto?" He must have felt like a right plonk in that environment. Yeah. And in fact, we were told that that environment never had a round of applause as loud as that one after we presented. So there was motivation from many stakeholders that this program has to actually run. Now, when it came to the crunch, and the crunch was, okay, put your money where your mouth is, resource it properly in the way it should be resourced, and we'll run it this way. When that proposal was put forward, there was a deafening silence, right? A deafening silence. And this is really funny because we expect to receive professionalism. You know, you're working in a professional organization, right? So, you know, you send an email, you send some proposal, whatever, you expect some response, don't you? Anyway, we are deafening silence from what, in fact, one person still all now hasn't got back to us. But then one of the senior leaders, the pro vice chancellor, they actually ended up getting back to us, I think 2 or 3 months after, and were basically saying, right, we've discussed the program and here's what we want to do. There you go. It's going to be we're proposing that we second you, and we're going to do a train the trainer model. We want you to train staff across the university and scale this thing up and do it across the whole university, train the trainer. Obviously not understanding the potency around the authentic self. It's not just anybody who can come and deliver this program. I can't go and train Joe Bloggs and think, yeah, no, I was going to run with it. Joe Bloggs might have not the same sentiment that I've got on this program, right? So there was that discussion that took place, and we had to say, look, thanks, but no thanks. We want to do it like this. And if it's not like this, then unfortunately we can't do it. So, you know, that, you know, and people talk about things that happen in the past in our community where certain people are in positions whereby they take on certain roles and certain responsibility in interest of their own career progression. Yeah. We could have done that in terms of accepted that proposal, and that could have been a good career move for us. You know, we're scaling up this thing across the university. Boom, boom, we're coordinating it. But for us, that was selling out because they wouldn't allow us to maintain the authenticity that we insisted on. Yeah. So that was an interesting sort of dilemma. And then we had another dilemma where they got back in touch with us some months later saying, oh, we've got a pot of money for you. We want you to run the program. And then again, we said, Maxine, yeah, I laughed. Then again, we said, look, you know, we're going to reflect on this. We got back to and said, look, if you want the program, this is how it has to run. These time, we sort of experienced many sort of hypocrisy and whatnot. So this time now, we're not even thinking about doing it internally. But we said to them, if you want it, this is how it's going to have to run. Yeah, we're going to have clear ownership of this thing, etc., etc. And you know, there was obviously some financial constraints, you know, etc. But the thing is, you know what the thing is, guys, when they want to bend rules, they bend rules to benefit them. So again, because of whatever, that didn't run. They didn't want to accept the terms and conditions. No problem, move on then. So whilst that's all happening, we're already sort of thinking beyond, you know, this systematic series of blockages, and you can call it, you know, aspects of institutional racism quite easily based on the things that we experienced. But we were thinking beyond that. Of course, we were now in the midst of writing the paper that got published in October. And to be honest, you know, I've written a few articles in my time, but this one was very emotional. I trust that you guys have had a quick glance of it, but it was
Give-
really an
so,
emotional
Can you give
piece
us
of
a
work.
brief oversight of the paper?
Yeah, so basically we had an opportunity to contribute towards the social society, politics journal article, which is a University of Cambridge prestigious social science journal article of high ranking in the academic world. You know, you have a high ranking journal based on the amount of people who cite things from that journal, etc., etc. So, I mean, Cambridge, of course, we all know University of Cambridge. It's one of the best universities in the world. So we had a chance to submit an article to this journal, and we submitted the abstract, and they liked it. Then we had the chance to go forward and write that, which we did. And long process, these things, you know, it's not overnight. I think we started writing this in March 2020. Is that right, guys?
Sounds right.
Yeah, we were writing this in 2020 March. It goes through series of reviews, revisions, and so on and so forth. And it got accepted, and it's now published, and it's open access, so anybody can actually access it and download it. So this is now cemented in theory, cemented in academia as a program, because basically the paper tells our story. Essentially, it tells a story in terms of how it was formed, the program, how we developed this progressive theory out of the program. And yeah, it's a really emotional piece of work, because not only does it do that, it talks about how principles of success has informed this framework of looking at building blocks to help organizations address race equality, diversity, and inclusion within their organization from a people, process, technology perspective. In other words, making this a part of the DNA, not flavor of the month, not, oh, Black History Month, let's get a guest speaker in, excite our people, then he's out or she's out the door and we're back to where we were. No, it's about having something that's part of the DNA that can make a sustainable, lasting change. So, you know, it informed the development of a framework that we've actually also developed as well with a standard organization. So in essence, I think that sort of covered a bit of the paper. I don't know if you guys want to add anything towards that.
Did you also, are you basically like saying then that if you, what can I say? If you respect learners culturally, and if you accept their cultural backgrounds and individualness, that basically, you know, empowers them and leads to the success that you're talking about.
That's definitely one of the key ingredients, Kevin, because if you can bring that person's cultural wealth into the learning as a part of the learning, whether that's through case studies, whether it's through bringing things from their lived experiences and relating it to what's been taught, that increases that person's sense of belonging and empowers them more towards their learning. So that's one of the key ingredients that we theorized out of this program.
Yeah, I think that's where we link, because obviously, like, I'm not as educated as you on the topic, and I don't have the, you know, the experience that you have. But we've been having certain discussions on the podcast relating to the impact of culture upon people in society, and especially, you know, you moving forward and being successful. And I like the deficit thinking model that you guys have been talking about, because that is, it's not just in education, is it? It's
everywhere.
It's in our culture, full stop.
Absolutely.
People speaking negative about each other, and if somebody's trying to get somewhere, we're all pulling him down and clawing him down, or wanting to go nowhere. And it all boils down to cultural knowledge of self and other aspects, doesn't it? There's no unity, there's no community, there's no. And I think what you've kind of done is like you've kind of created a safe community within the university to say, like, well, if you're from a certain background, you're safe in this space and you can be yourself in this space, and ain't nobody gonna persecute you for being yourself.
Because you know something, I mean, I think we've got, I know Benny, I think he's got his hand raised. I'll just say one thing before he comes in with his question, but I remember when I went to university, right? And I did feel like a fish out of a pond, right? And that was back then, you know, so I sort of understood what it can feel like. You can feel isolated. You know, you come into this massive environment, people talking different, you know, most people looking different, and it can be quite intimidating, you know, and something like this was really something that our people attached to and identified with, you know. Bente, you got a question?
It wasn't so much a question. I was just, Kevin, you kind of beat me to it in what you were saying, because through a lot of discussions what we've been having on the podcast and the other forums, that's what the conclusions we've come up with in regards to learning and education, and people excelling if they appreciated culturally within the environment. So a lot of our discussions have been around school, but what's becoming apparent as well through these discussions in that it's across the board, whether it's higher education, further education, or even the workplace.
Yeah.
And all these environments are sounding like they could do with similar projects to what you guys have set up, to be honest. My only question is if they need to be external as opposed to internal. Because what it sounded like at the moment is that it's not going to be accepted within the build-up of the institution. So on the lower levels, on the ground levels, like you said, the managers, what you first get in contact with, they seem to be interested in it because they seem to be more in touch. But as you get higher up the ladders, people start to back off from it because you know, they seem to be more entwined within the institution itself. So as you know, as with experience, when people get in like high positions, they tend to work for the institution as opposed to working for the people, what they originally started working for. So it sounded like it's coming to a conclusion of we need to start doing for self. And that's resonating with a lot of things.
You bang on, to be honest, Bente, because we made that decision that, you know what, why are we limiting this to the university? It's bigger than the university. So, you know, we've now constituted principles of success, and we are in the process of now working towards getting the program accredited, because we really want to do this so it has the maximum impact. And we felt that if we can do what we've done and now build on it to get it accredited by the likes of ILM, Institute of Leadership Management, or CMI, Chartered Management Institute, so that when students or participants come onto the program, they not only get the experience that we've been discussing today, but they also get a certification as well that can carry weight nationally and internationally. Now, to get that, you have to jump through quite a few hoops, which we're working towards now. There's a whole sort of policy, quality assurance, all that admin stuff that needs to take place before you can get that seal of approval. But we made a decision that that's what we need to do and bring the program to the community.
Yeah, because it'd be great if you guys could, like, for a start, like what Ben was saying is true, doing for self. It'd be good if schools and organizations would employ you to come and train their staff on topics like this. And like you said, the way how they can incorporate this into their teaching and into their lessons. And this is across the board. Do you know what I mean? So you could make it quite a good package. And then also the whole scheme itself, that should also be something that, you know, should be a template that could be used by many schools and many organizations in many different places. Do you know what I mean? If you set it up right, which then it will have the impact that you want, then it'll be like a national impact and everybody will benefit from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you guys are pursuing that, that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, just
it kind of appears to me, listening to a lot of these discussions, that everything's based on this capitalist kind of idea. So they're gonna, if your program is successful or deemed to be successful, then they're gonna invest in it. Not because necessarily they genuinely want it to be there, but because they got no choice, because they feel like it's pressure to capitalize on it from what's been successful. And we see that across the board with a lot of stuff what we create and develop. So I think it's just a case of, like we're saying, doing for self, making it good and quality, and giving them no choice but to have to invest in it, even if they don't really agree with the ethos of it and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, as long as whilst you're doing that, you maintain that authenticity as well. It doesn't matter what their intentions are, because the thing is, you have control of the reins. You own this. It's not owned by them, and you're providing it to them on your terms, really. And
Yeah.
that was the problem that we came to in the end. That these people, what? No, it's okay. Yeah.
Does anybody else got any questions? The panel, no?
I can see some guests here that look familiar. I mean, I think we even have, there's not one of the graduates from the program, but certainly one, I think a master's student who I taught recently, who's been following the story of POS. Okay. I invited her this evening. It'd be interesting, maybe Adak, I don't know if you want to just share some of your thoughts in terms of your experience when we first met in that program, and did you feel a sense of belonging on that program that we taught, although it was outside POS, and if so, why? What was it that sort of gave you that?
Okay, hi everyone, good evening. I'm Adako, a master's student. I will be finishing in January. So my first experience with this program was my lecture with Jamie, and that was in July. Prior to that, I had been in school for, say, 6 or 7 months. And yeah, it was okay. I mean, school is school. But then during the course where Jamie taught, it felt different. And then beyond just teaching us academically, he also brought people that could speak from the industry. And then we could see people that looked like us, but then were successful and then could give us practical industry experience. And then in class, he also helped to like build a sense of community. And so all of a sudden, he didn't feel like, oh, I'm in this new city and I don't know anybody. But with what Jamie did in and outside the class, so he made some connections and I met a couple of people. So that really helped. So now I can feel like, okay, yes, maybe Sheffield can be my home. But prior to that, I just felt, like he said, just out of place. It's just, okay, I'm here in school, what's happening, what's next? But then with this, it's like, okay, so there's a place for you here. You can find a community. There are Nigerians here. There are these other sets of people here, and then talk to this person. So it was really helpful.
So do you think that the program has helped you focus and be able to concentrate more academically and without the so-called feeling that isolation?
So I wasn't in the first leadership program or the Principles of Success program that helped, but just my interactions with Jamie has helped. So that's why I've taken an interest in this, because it has definitely helped with the interactions and everything. And there's a sense of community now. So if I have an issue, I know, okay, so these are the people I can reach out to, and going above and beyond, like academically. So there was the academic aspect, but then there was that sense of community of being able to settle into a new city. So for a lot of us students, it was our first time that we kind of felt like, okay, somebody was listening to us or was paying attention to us outside of school.
Yeah, and for me, it's, whilst, you know, we look at those principles we discussed earlier in terms of what we learned from the program, but I try to embed that into my own sort of academic core curriculum that I deliver. And Adako was one of the postgrad students on a master's module that I co-taught with somebody. And, you know, to be honest, it's always nice when you're teaching your own people as well. I mean, I obviously I maintain equality across anybody, but you know, because I've got an emotional attachment back to the continent, it's always nice when I see people coming from Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, etc., coming to the university to study. And, you know, I want them to understand that, hey, you know, we are connected beyond the classroom as well. You know, there's a connection there as well. So, you know, we try and obviously embed those principles into the teaching. And, you know, it was good to build that relationship with Adako and her peers. And I think we had a really good time. In fact, it was the first time that I taught on campus for about 13, 14 months. So that was nice, but also teaching these students as well was a bonus. But yeah, it's those principles that we try to just, you know, adhere to and deliver on a sincere intention, really.
Yeah, like Jamie clearly
Right.
knows.
I was going to say,
Sorry.
I think Rob's, is it Rob Cottrell? I think I spotted, who was also one of our
yes, Rob,
speakers who came to share his wisdom with us. Don't know whether Rob wants to comment on his involvement. Is it?
I wasn't planning on, but thanks for spotting me, Maxine. How long have I known you? Yeah, I guess, you know, because I was involved in some of the conversation when you were setting this up, and I think I was waiting to come on as a speaker for about 15 months. I said, am I still coming on or what? But yeah. But I think what this basically does, it just demonstrates that what we've been doing now, certainly in England, for the last, 40, for 50 years now, you know, Saturday schools, study skills classes, etc. We know it works. We know that we thrive when we're in an environment that we feel we belong to. And as someone, it was, it says iPhone, the young man, Unity there, who said that we go to these places and we just feel like strangers. If it's school, college, university, and we spend years there. I spent 12 years in school and I still felt like a stranger because those systems aren't designed for us. And so coming into a situation, I mean, I didn't start getting serious about my education. I was 25, 26 years old. I used to go to Sadaka, when Sadaka first opened, and sit in the Saturday school. I was sitting in the Saturday school as a 26-year-old with 8, 9-year-old young students. I just went for the African history because I just needed to learn something about myself and make me feel more positive. And then I went for it. I had no idea what I was going to do at university or how I was going to come out at the end. But I knew once I started, I weren't going to fail. And that was from that little cell there at the Saturday school. So you're right. So when I walk into your workshops and your lecture theatres, and it's all those black students there, even for me, who's been through these systems, and I've done all I think I've done all I want to do in education, to see all those people there who largely look like me, it's really empowering. It makes you feel good. And I'm coming here as a speaker, you know. And so, yeah, we know these things work, but the beauty about what you've done, I wish I'd have done it, but I'm not that smart. But what you've done is to put that framework around it. You've given it, you know, a framework of principles that if you just work to this framework, well, like any successful company has a model. Now we have a model. We, as in, you know, our communities have a model that we know's always worked, but it's been kind of ad hoc. The Saturday school was great, but it was kind of ad hoc. There was no, we didn't like do any research on it. We didn't keep any stats. We should have an alumni all over Sadaka of all the people that have gone through Saturday school and have come out of the other end. You know, but we don't have it. It's something I'm thinking about, you know, trying to backtrack on. But
I'm one of them.
Well, there you go. There you go. You know, and there are others. I think there's one or two that's come out and been medical doctors, etc. You know, and other things. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've done something academic but that you've had a success in your life. And so that's the beauty about what you've done. And although I read the paper that you that was presented at Cambridge, I've got to admit, I didn't understand all the academic terms and phraseology in it, but I followed the thread of it. And it is a tremendous piece of work, but I've already told you that anyway. And so, yeah, you know, Benty, now I know it is Benty. You know, Benty in the group, I'm thinking, who's this Benty all the time? Now I know this man years and didn't know his name was Benty. Anyway, and so, yeah, and as we've been talking earlier, Johan and Jamie, this is a framework that we can take to other areas of where we're trying to succeed. You know, so we start to bring this, what we're all trying to do in all our different fields and different areas across the communities, to bring it better as a holistic model. And POS maybe is the framework that we can all take from and give to. I was going to come in when Jonathan asked this question as just the final thing, because I think the last thing that needs to happen to POS is for the university to own it. That's the last thing. They can support it, they can give it whatever resources, you know, that they want to take out of their back pocket, that they've got just lying around spare, but they can never own it. Because if they ever own it, they'll destroy it. Or what you'll find is, as soon as they own it, you'll find out of the 50 places that you allocate for the year, 48 won't look like us. And then eventually they'll just grind away and grind away. You guys will all walk away. And that's another thing that we will have lost. And I hope Maxine doesn't mind me saying, it's a bit like what we allowed to happen to Men Up North. You know, that space that we created for us to talk, not taken over. Because they know what we do is good. We know what we do is good. So of course they're just going to sit back, let us create something, boom, they step in, it's gone. But no, it's a fantastic program. And I felt honoured going to talk to those young leaders of tomorrow. Some of which I'm sure will be leading now. But yeah, fantastic program. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to all feed more into it and get something out and start to really redress some of these things that we've been talking about. I mean, in our communities, you know, again, Jonathan, I think he's disappeared, Jonathan, now. You know, this school exclusion to prison pipeline, this can redress some of that. Absolutely. And beyond. But yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you. And it was
One thing
having you on
Ben,
board.
Benty, you got another question or something? Point?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that it's like we read each other's minds. That's why these conversations good, because Rob, that's exactly what I was going to say. It sounded like this model can be used across the board. Because what's kind of concerning me as adults, we're saying that we feel isolated and we feel intimidated, or you know, whichever description, in these environments when we step into university or places like that. So, you know, we've just got to imagine what it feels like for the young people what's going to school, what's not got that emotional literacy to be able to deal with whatever they're going through. You know, it's just happening to them. And that, again, like you said, Rob, it's like reading minds. That's what it starts to, you know, happen with this school to prison pipeline. So I think it's even more so important to get this kind of model going to support the young people what are going to school.
Yeah, I mean, we had some of that kind of conversation today, because I think some of it is about maybe principles of success. Well, it would have to be adapted, wouldn't it, for children of school age, but it can also be adapted to work with parents and carers. So parents and carers have some principles of success to help their children get through school and not go down there like the roadman, you know, raring at the school, which is not going to help your child at all. You might feel you've got something off your chest, but your child's finished in that school if the teachers and the staff are afraid of you. Yeah, and I think there's things we can take. Well, it's true, because, you know, some of us here, well, all of us here on this screen, we've worked for organisations, we've got some kind of like professional background, we know our systems work. Yeah, I talk loud, I know that, but when I go to school, they're expecting me to start tripping out. But no, I had them hook, line and sinker, don't you? When my two sons were at school, they knew that they had to check out and call me when anything was going wrong. And I used to ask for policies and procedures and all sorts. They're not expecting that. And we've got to teach more of our parents to do that so they can enable their kids to get through school. Then You know, principal success at this level starts stepping in as they get to 18, 19 years old, you know, so those principles are going directly into the children. But I think there is so much that we could do with this. And I'm hoping that Johan and Maxine and Jamie are also thinking along these lines, because it's a pretty good model.
And I think
I was going to say it's a perfect model, but I think it's still working on it.
The point keeps coming back over and over again as well, that how powerful it is for Black people to see other Black people in a successful position or in good positions. Do you know what I mean? Like to have Black role models and people what you look up to, really, and also just being around your own people. Like that's something what resounding everybody said. Do you know what I mean? So that's the whole reason why we're trying to make this community project and trying to bring people back together and make people be seen, because everybody's in hiding, everybody's isolated, and that's no good for the young people. And we're also trying to put back on a Saturday school as well. Like we're trying to get that idea back up and running, because that is clearly an essential part of the education journey for some of these youngsters. You know what I mean? Just being
100%.
around your own, getting some cultural information. And I suppose you could work with us on that, you know, Jamie, because in what we're doing, that template sounds like it fits nicely in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we've really got to, and I think we have got that passion now. You know, there's pockets of things that happen across the city, and we've just got to find effective ways to work with each other to create desired impact. And for us, we're just, because we obviously got our full-time roles and other things, and we're doing this outside of that. And you know, the things come with your job. More and more things come in. You're getting paid for the same money, but put that aside. We're trying to just streamline our focus to get this accreditation in the bag, because once that's in the bag, then this is going to be a real valuable proposition to, you know, HE students. We've already sort of adapted the type of model for schools already. So it's not going to be difficult to sort of, you know what I mean, tailor and build something that's going to be more bespoke for, you know, Key Stage 4 or Key Stage 3, or whatever that is. So yeah, we've got that in mind, but we're obviously working on the resource that we have at the moment, and we're making steady progress towards that.
Gav.
Yep, I'd like to thank Johan, Maxine, and Jamie for coming and sharing the information with us.
No, it's a pleasure, Gavin. Thanks for having us, man.
And if you wanna state where we can look for the journal, the website, or
Yeah, I mean, I can do a couple of things. I can put the link in the chat for those. I mean, those who are online may or may not have it. Let me just bring it up on the screen as well. Because the good thing is it's available, open access. So there you go. I'm gonna put a link in the chat, so maybe you can share it on your own platform as well. But what I'll just do is share the screen, if that's all right. In fact, Gavin, are you on a laptop or are you on your phone?
Yeah, laptop.
All right, I've not got sharing rights, but if you just click that link that I've put in the chat and then maybe share that on the screen so people can see it.
Oh, what? One sec. I've just put. You should be able to share now.
Okay, cool. So, has that come up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Gavin will share the link. But if you Googled Principles of Success, Cambridge University, the link will probably come up anyway. But this is the actual landing page of the paper. That's literally, you can have a download it as a PDF, or you can read it online. You've got like a linked content page here on the left hand side, which sort of goes through the whole paper. You know, that's the abstract. Then you scroll down, and it's basically all in there essentially. But as I said, you know, give yourself half an hour to read that one and take it in, because you know, for us it was a very emotional piece of work. When we read back on it, it was just really emotional, because it told the journey, and we know only we know what blood, sweat and tears we'd put in across, you know, the last 3 years in making this a reality. And when you get it published in an outlet like this, it just sort of, yeah, we could have ball, man, to be honest. So yeah,
it needs to be very, you know, it's big. It's really big for us, for the community. This.
Yeah, this is owned by the community, man. We're organic. We're from the community, so let's keep it real. This is, you know, for our community. Our community is theorizing its work. You understand? Having our own place in that academia. So I spoke to a colleague at University of Sheffield they're doing some equity program. Anthony, Maxine, you know Anthony, don't you? Yeah, I shared a link with him, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to take some of this and embed it into our program up at University of Sheffield. So for me, it's there to share practice. People take from it, learn from it, embed it where they can, and of course, ourselves, we're willing to sort of work progressively where we can, and also help to create impact from what we've learned and what we've published here. So yeah, it's there to stay now. No one can remove that from the shelves. It's cemented, you know what I mean?
And do you have a website or anything for your principles of success? Or
our domain is secured. Right now, we're just developing the website. So sit tight. That's going to be launched in the near future. It's principlesofsuccess.co.uk. So we've got the domain. We're just getting that together right now. And there's going to be some really good stuff that will be on the website, because we've got a lot of content, to be honest, a lot of content already. So when we launch that, we'll let you guys know, and you can share it amongst your contacts.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody, and participating. If anybody's got anything else.
I think as well, guys, in future we should probably, as things progress, we should have another. Should come back and do another session to see how things have developed and share some successes and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. Not a problem, man. Yeah, we'll do that at the right time for sure.
Yeah, and congratulations.
Before we sign off, remember it's by us, for us, and only we can make it work.
That's it. By us, for us.
Congratulations, guys, on a fantastic piece of work. Like, we appreciate the hard work that you're putting in on the people's behalf. Like you said, you're not getting paid for it, and you're doing it in your own time. So that's much respect due, man. This is what we're talking about, exactly what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Recorded, so we will be putting up the video on YouTube on the Unity project, and so you'll be able to see this and watch this as well. For anybody who didn't manage to tune in today, so the information will be out there. So once again, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing.
And hey, guys, keep doing what you're doing, because you know there's nobody else who's coming from our community.
That's
and I mean from our, you know, organic and doing this on a weekly or fortnightly basis, where you're bringing in people and you're making our community aware. So all I can say is hats off to you guys for actually having the initiative to do this and to bring people from our community to the forefront and let them share what they're doing, so that everyone can be aware, because that's something that's an essential ingredient for us having some progressive movement to go forward. So you guys keep doing what you're doing, man, and you know, may the Almighty keep blessing it and make it grow from strength to strength.
I'm going to say that in addition to that, what you've created is a community of practice. So the more you do it, the more the young people can see, taking that information as well.
This is it, man, because yeah, we got to do something for these youth to understand that they've got something to do when they get to that stage as well. Because imagine if we didn't do anything, then we'd have a cycle of no production of nothing, man.
Nothing.
Dangerous that one.
Nothing produces nothing.
Yeah.
Agreed. I highly agree.
Okay, then. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening, man.
Guys.
Bye bye.
Liverpool FC.